Okay, now coming to the characters, I talked about how tightly written the dialogue is, and I just wanted to highlight a few scenes that I thought were really stood out to me. I mean, they're not mind blowing in the sense of I'm sure other games, other genres, other works, whatever, have done this just as well, if not better. But at least for this game, for FF, I feel like they've really been improving game to game. So 15 had, I mean, the Chocobros were great, very expressive, and the bonding and stuff was great, fantastic. Then you come to 7R, the banter between the characters was so good, and it's even more impressive because Square was able to translate very 90s text-based characters and mannerisms into voice acted, mocap, whatever, fully flashed out characters, right? So that is a challenge in itself. And whatever other criticisms I have about 7R, the transition of the characters to modern day visuals and voice acting is amazing. Yeah, the banter is great. In fact, the banter is something that we miss a lot in 16. I really wish we had more of that. Okay, so and then there were parts where you could see the mannerisms were, or rather, in 7R, mannerisms were a bit were definitely more unique, like to each character, because it draws on from the really exaggerated versions from the OG, like Barrett, he's super expressive with his arms and all that. Aerith had certain quirks, how she behaves, how she leans forward, yada, things like that. So coming to, but they're still okay. But coming to 16, so 16's characters are not over the top expressive in a more slightly I don't know what you call it, animated anime way. But what they pull off are very subtle behaviors, subtle reactions, and they really make use of the character's expression. That could probably be improved. Like I feel like sometimes Jill doesn't feel very expressive to me in her facial features, but Clive is just top. Like everything he shows on face, and he himself is a big puppy anyway, so he himself is a very expressive character. But how they tell the story through him is so some of it is just so satisfying. So for example, here when they meet Lady Hannah, and they've reunited after 13 years. She's happy to see him, and it's the first time. So look at his face here, like, oh my god, he's so happy, like, all the harshness, he looks like a boy again, right? So all the harshness has gone. He's like big eyes and stuff. Okay, so that's great, right? So even his voice lifts, if you remember, like, it's the voice carries through as well. Yeah. So here we go, they reunite with Hannah, and then they just skip ahead. They recap what's happening to her. Let me see. Yeah, and then they talk about what happened to both of them. Hannah's being wonderful, being so loving and kind. And then she looks at Clive here, and it's just silent, right? The camera moves to focus on his brand, Hannah's face. Clive is, there we go. Yeah, Clive is he's awkward. He knows what she's looking at. She doesn't say it, but her eyes move there. Camera moves with it. Clive is like, he feels self-conscious about his brand. And then, he admits, it wasn't easy, but we survived. And the voice acting is fantastic as well. It carries that unspoken pain that Clive endured while in the Imperial Army. He doesn't launch into some long, I suffered so badly, I was abused, I had to kill men, He doesn't. It's really just these few lines here. And he can't look at her, right? He averts his eyes, and he looks to Jill for support, and then Jill's like, okay, Jill, perfect little noble born lady, right? Yeah, she brings the conversation back, gets them back on track. And it's great. It's like so much pain and stuff is unspoken. It doesn't have to be spelled out, because again, in that world, they know what bear life is like, or what a soldier's life is like, or maybe mostly, right? Just assume that in general these three are very, and Lady Hannah's an empathetic person. So it all's conveyed without too much like exposition-y blather. So really tightly done, and they used the expression so well. I really like that Clive just couldn't even articulate everything he's been through, which when you compare to what he told Sid at the start, I drank from the gutter, I killed men, blah blah blah, all for my quest for revenge. It's the comparison, and I think it's on purpose, because Clive at that time, he himself says, right, he was in denial, he was trying to run from the truth. So he's expressing these urges to find Joshua's killer, but really he's just trying to cope. So he said all these things, but that's really not Clive. He's actually a very kind and loving person, and he doesn't want to. He's not someone who is so cold-blooded, hell-bent on revenge. Deep down, sure he wanted retribution, but deep down he's not that kind of person. So the comparison between the two scenes it's really cool, and to just see this scene play out. I think it's so subtle, but so well done. And then another example is where you meet the Black Shields. Can I find it? Let me see. Yeah, here we go. When they find the Black Shields, I forgot if Clive really knew what they were like, but definitely at this point he realizes that they are basically Annabella's dig at, or parody almost. I'm not sure what's the word. But she's basically making a mockery of the shields of Rosaria. Of course, they're associated with Elwyn, and I'm sure a lot of it just stems from her hating his guts, basically. But yeah, so Clive is he's furious when he hears them take their oath or whatever. And I don't think it's ever explicitly said that Annabella modeled them on the shields, at least not at this point. If it is said, it's probably later or something like that as well. But again, it's never like, oh, Annabella set this up because she is mocking the shields of Rosaria. It's just you see it or you feel it through Clive's own reaction. He's angrier than normal, and it's so personal for him. So and then of course it's this whole thing is tied with you finding Wade, and then that the shields never really died. They live on, so it's like the shields live on under the Guardians of the Flame. So yeah, there are parts of the story that are just presented in these more subtle ways, and I think that it just shows a maturity in the storytelling that hopefully carries through. It doesn't have to be just in M-rated FFs. It can be applied to any FF, and hopefully Square continues to use voice acting, expressions, especially as the expressions become more developed, to tell the stories in this way. And of course, I skipped the scene with Clive and Jill, but again, long silences, just letting the scene sit between them and building up the romantic tension, and cop blocking us or holding us back at least 2 or 3 times before they finally kiss or get together. Anyway, so just really good storytelling in terms of the efficiency of it and knowing when to use expressions and when not to say. Now, this doesn't mean that it doesn't, or rather the standard is not maintained though. So at a certain point, I think the last third for sure, the characters suddenly get really preachy, long exposition. It's really a shame, and I don't know why. Did they lose faith in the audience's ability to follow the story? I don't know if they were rushing for time. I heard that they seem to be on track for most of it. But it's just some of it gets really ridiculous. I think it's a major spoiler for this one in the ending. Hang on. Yep, alright. Whoops, I didn't know. Yep, alright, we're here. So, the Joshua's death scene, second death scene, I guess. it's such a beautiful moment, so sad, so heart-wrenching, and then he launches into this, I don't know, 5-line exposition about Ultima or something. And Clive is losing his mind. You know, Joshua is like, listen to me, Clive, let me just repeat all the things that you should have been able to piece together up to now. Oh, there's active time law for you to click into if you really can't remember, right? But no, Joshua, and it doesn't jive with all the other deaths. Like Sid had a little bit of a monologue. He also did, but not as long as this. And it was, you know, and I thought that was okay. The pace felt fine. And then he died, right? Elwin died. Who else do we have? I guess those are two big ones, right? When people die, they die. So for this to I just really damaged the emotion behind it. That could have been focused more, and towards the end, you know, it really was focused on Joshua giving the last of himself to Clive, for him to carry on their battle. I just, oh my god, the weird level of exposition here just doesn't fit at all. Doesn't damage the scene. I still think it's beautiful scene. It's so wonderful. I just don't understand why they needed so many long lines for Joshua. And that's not even counting, including the side quests, you know, so when you do your, when you save Dalamil, North Reach, Martha's Rest, right? The characters go on and on and on, and they're just non-stop. And then there are parts of the game where Clive himself starts getting super preachy, and I don't understand why it got to that point. It's not because it became super like, let's kill God, power of friendship, you know, and or rather just because the topic is that it doesn't have to be so long with it. It could have kept the sharpness of the dialogue and the scenes from the start, and then just kept the message for the end. But I don't know why. I felt like the last third at least of the game like needed so much more editing, at least another couple of rounds to really sharpen up the dialogue, really. So that's where, those are my thoughts on gosh, look at that, it's so sad. This really is so sad. Yeah, but those are my thoughts on the writing and where it could be improved, where it did really well, and I hope that it continues to be sharpened as we go. I can just imagine 7R and Sephiroth's non-stop monologuing. You know, it could be a JRPG thing. I don't know, but I think that if we want to keep going into serious story games, and Square wants to always improve, right? They're always looking at games like Witcher 3 and God of War and stuff as inspirations. They really have to tighten up their dialogue as well. And I really think they did in the first at least 2/3 of the game. I just don't know what happened in the last third. It's like they lost faith that the audience knows what's going on. Yeah, and they had to keep repeating the same messages over and over again. Okay, but now I'm repeating myself, so let's say in terms of writing, and then I'll go to side quests next.